I would try to edit this chapter again. It seemed like the more I worked on it, the more I was corrupting it. When I read it over yesterday, it seemed empty. I thought I should delete it entirely. I won't blame the new medication I'm on, but I'll go through it one more time to try to get something together. I woke up from a dream. I don't remember where I was. I had my dad's baseball bat, the black aluminum one he kept in the garage. I kept swinging it, trying to break this wooden tower, but I couldn't gather enough strength. I wrote for a few hours, until about 5:30. I went back to bed and slept again for another hour or so. I took my medication when I woke up, with the last sip of the coffee I'd left from the day before. I wrote about another dream I had. I was in a lecture hall. A woman asked me if she could eat a tin of cat food while she was writing her exam. She said I'd given her that flavor before. It was the same type we buy for our cat. She said she'd bought a few more cans because she liked it. I don't know exactly how to move forwards from here, but I suppose that I never really do. I keep coming back to the medication, how things feel different now. The sadness and hopelessness that I'm used to have dampened, but the anxiety seems more prevalent in their absence. Like they had a way of padding the anxiety or softening it. Like now, there's too much treble on it. I don't know what I'm so anxious about exactly. Having enough time to write. The feeling that time is running out. That is always how it feels to write. That time is running out. Even when the entire morning is free, and there is time, there's a purgatory between the moment I sit down to write and when the momentum starts to build. Some days I'm able to pass through it without much friction, and other days I'm on YouTube, I'm playing chess on my phone, I'm listening to music, until something clicks and I'm able to lock in. Some days I don't get very far at all. I get frustrated on those days that a rabid critter has crawled up my ass and is eating my insides, that I cannot break the tower. I try to trust that it's a good thing to get to those points, that I'm pushing past my ability, that it's good that it feels difficult, that I should be grateful that it's difficult, that there's no way around it. I would like to think there's a more calm version of myself out there that could sit and write in peace out of sheer enjoyment with laziness and ease, but that is not who I know myself to be. Maybe that's for another day. I've began to notice that since being on these new meds, the size of the paragraphs I've been writing have been longer, but a lot of the writing, as I read it back, as I said before, it feels vapid, that there isn't much emotional weight. There are too many empty carbs. There's a redundancy to the clarity of what I'm writing, that there's no depth to extract anything more from. The absurdity, the mess, the chaos seems to have been sanitized from it. It's been vacuumed into a snow globe. My fear, in the most simple terms I've realized, is that I won't be able to do my best writing on this medication. That I won't be able to do my best work without the existential panic and the perpetual self-doubt, the melancholy, the depression. Despite their hardship, they were a path that led inward. That side of me that struggled with what it did, it seems that being sober from that is oddly what I have to learn to do. To be sober from the elation of that intense depth of self that negativity can lead to. The experiment I'm running on myself is to see if maybe I'm wrong, that version of myself is not as authentic as I think that it is. Maybe finding some version of myself that isn't suffering so much under the weight of things, that this medication will help level me out, and I'll be able to prove to myself that even without that depression, that I'm still here. That said, the emotions are still here, but they're different. I'm not depressed, I'm anti-depressed. That my ego's grip has released some control, but still I can feel the craving and tension that it wants. The volume has been turned down. I returned to the thought, depression seems to have a way of softening things, of slowing them down, and so now, without that low end, I can feel my irritability and my anxiety more acutely. I have the sense that those things, anxiety and irritability, that they can be managed more easily than depression. Depression has a way of taking over. It has a way of transcending the intellect. But anxiety, I have the impression that the intellect stands a chance at combating it by focusing and facing the fear that it guides towards. It is possible to overcome it with force and effort. Depression is the negativity of the soul rather than the intellect, and the will to overcome it with effort and force alone, it's very difficult. Lately, as I've been editing the beginning of this book, I spent a lot more time considering its chronology and plot. On one hand, it seems like a form of procrastination, and on the other, it seems that maybe building that structure is necessary to support the weight of the chapters to come. I had the thought that I wanted to write the next chapters of this book about editing the manuscript as a whole. I thought that might be a natural resolution to all of this. So far, I've been able to edit the first half of part 1. It's been difficult to know what to do with it, how to shape it in a way that will suit the rest of the book. As the chapters go on, I don't think they'll require as much work. But that first part, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know I was writing a book at all. I'm wary of the back and forth, the gear shifting between the writing and the editing, that it will disturb the engine. It's possible that, more than anything, has been the source of my frustration. I'm unsure if I should be rewriting as much as I have been, that I will lose what it was. The time that it takes place in, when I first learned about my dad's illness, about going to visit him in Calgary after his brain surgery. When I read it back, I see how much was missing from what I was writing. Most of all, how I was unable to show the fear that I felt. I suppose, in the writing, I was trying to hold on to some sense of normalcy under the weight of his diagnosis. That mundaneness that I was fetishizing, it acted as a fantasy of sorts. Just eating a meal and watching TV felt incredibly sentimental. I'll keep working on it, trying to honor what it was. I did another pass of part 1. The bones are there, but I sensed so much weakness in the writing. I began to feel hopeless about it, that it was shit, that it wasn't going to work. Why would anyone want to read this? It's a complete fucking mess. And on the thoughts went, spiraling as they do. That self-loathing, that negativity, I had to appreciate it in a way. If I was so convinced it was gone, well, there it was. To focus on that, to conjure my inner narcissist, the self-indulgence I've been so ashamed of, the side of me that was trapped under the unbearable weight of things. And here I am now, complaining about my lack of depression, my lack of discomfort, the lack of everything I know myself to be, my fear of how reasonable I feel. I have to ask myself, why am I so attached to that feeling of otherness and discomfort? Perhaps it's my way of controlling things. Perhaps it's my way of knowing myself. I can see how addicted I am to it. Now to write, not to get away from it, not as a desperate act to manage what it is, but to try to get it back, to find myself again. How insane of an idea that seems to be. I suppose I've found a new antagonist, one of anti-depression, one of sanitized numbness. As I sort through the beginning of this book, I've also been thinking about its ending, of how perhaps coasting along without much resolution might be the way to go. I'm trying to resist the pressure to come up with some kind of grand finale. I would like to come to whatever resolution I'm going towards in an honest way, to slowly land with the idea that I am okay. There's a note I took on my phone when I was out with Nora yesterday, slowly pushing her stroller down the sidewalk. I wanted to write it here in its original form, without any editing or revision, written as it came to me. Writing. You show up with your ball and your bat. You hit the ball, and you see how far it went. And you go home, and in the morning, you take the bat and go to where the ball landed, and you pick it up, and you hit it again, and it goes farther along. And sometimes you're impressed with how far it went, and you keep doing that day after day until eventually the ball goes somewhere, and you look and see where you started. You see that the distance isn't anything. It's something else. Something in how you kept going along with it, with all that you were able. I reminded of the dream I had of having my dad's baseball bat. How I kept swinging it, trying to break the tower. How even in the dream, I knew I had more strength to put into it.